As you know, there's been a lot of conflict recently over where Tamerlan Tsarnaev should be buried. They had been going to literally dozens of cemeteries, and nobody wanted to have his body there. Now, there are a couple of reasons they were worried about that. They felt like it might be some sort of shrine, I guess, for Islamic extremists to want to go there. I imagine that if you were part of some sort of Islamic extremist cell in America, you probably wouldn't want to telegraph your presence to the FBI by holding weekly vigils over the body of Tamerlan, especially because as of yet we still have no real evidence that he was connected in any substantive way to Islamic extremists abroad. But those concerns were there. But anyway, it turns out that now, after a couple of weeks, we've got him in the ground. He is going to be buried. It's going to be at the Barzakh Cemetery, which is a small cemetery in Doswell, Virginia, which is just about 25 miles north of Richmond. So he will be moved down to Virginia, and he will be buried in this Muslim cemetery. Now, it's actually kind of interesting how this came about, and you might wonder, why is he going all the way down to Virginia? So there's a woman, Martha Mullen. Now, she is in fact Christian, but she says that her Christian faith told her she needed to do something. Let's go to her quote. She says, "Jesus says to love our enemies, so I was sitting in Starbucks and thought, maybe I'm the one person who needs to do something." I love that she got this deep philosophical thinking about her role in the burial of a terrorist while in Starbucks. I'm usually trying to make a little bit of progress on my zombie fantasy novel, which is still just about halfway through. But anyway, she decided to do that, so she contacted Imam Ammar Amaretti, which sounds actually like an Italian name, oddly enough. And so he was able to arrange for this burial, which will happen. So I guess the conflict is over? It's hard to tell, and here's why. In America, we have an obsession with the weirdest things. One of them apparently is bodies. And the idea is that these terrorists are bad people. They did horrible things. And I suppose, I don't want to be unreasonable. I don't want the guy being buried in my front yard or something like that. But being in a cemetery somewhere, look, we put bodies somewhere. Do you want to cremate him, dump him into the ocean? Eventually his body gets circulated back into our drinking water or something like that? It's moronic. He's not going to kill anyone else. We don't have to worry about zombie terrorists anytime soon, but people are obsessed with bodies. It kind of reminds me about, there was the mosque near the World Trade Center, the site of where the World Trade Center was, and people were so worried about that. Now, they had no connection whatsoever to any sort of extremism or jihadists or anything, but people just feel like anything that has this negative connotation can't be within blocks of me. I don't want it sullying my community, but that's not how communities work, so I think that you can relax. Also, it's similar to, we've had this discussion about closing down Guantanamo, and the idea is that you then have to put these people somewhere. And we'd want to try them in New York, probably, because, I mean, if the crimes that they were eventually put in there for, some of them, took place in New York, that's the jurisdiction that they would have to be tried in. And people were saying, no, don't bring them to New York, as if they're just going to break out of police custody and start blowing up buildings. They've been on hunger strikes for, it seems like, years at this point. I don't think they're going to be blowing up anything. Cenk likes to talk about this, and I feel the same way. I think that this obsession with keeping the bodies away and keeping the terrorists off our shores when they're in police custody is a sign of immense weakness. I believe that if you want to project strength to the world and strength to our enemies, bring them here, show them that our criminal justice system, our prison system is strong enough to keep together or keep under guard a couple of terrorists who haven't had any exercise or real food in something like 8 years. And yeah, I think that this is just another continuing instance of the weird Islamophobia that just is blanketing our country for the last decade. Like that people in Virginia, I don't know if they're protesting yet. I imagine there will be some protests, even though this is a Muslim cemetery. They probably don't think of themselves as people who hate Muslims, but the idea that the body of a dead terrorist can't be somewhere in a cemetery that you're not even going to go into anyway would bother you. I think that's a problem, and I think that these people should move on and move past this obsession we have with bodies.